Welcome to Southwest Desert, where adventure meets the arid beauty of the American Southwest. Join us as we explore the rugged landscapes, uncover hidden historical gems, and dive deep into the rich legends and culture of this iconic region. Subscribe now and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on our latest desert adventures. Please leave a like or comment. This is very helpful. Let's journey together into the heart of the Southwest Desert. In the rugged White Mountains of Arizona, where ancient spirits still whisper through twisted juniper trees, a tale of vengeance, supernatural power, and divine justice unfolded in the 1870s. This is Southwest Desert, and I'm your host, Alan. Today, we're diving into one of the most compelling and chilling stories from the American frontier, the legend of Montezuma's snake. Our story begins at a remote trading post run by a man known as Malcolm Graves, though some sources name him Reeves. The exact location has been lost to time, but the horrors that occurred there have been preserved through both Apache oral tradition and the accounts of those who've encountered its lingering spirits. What makes this particular trading post significant isn't just its tragic history, but how it became a nexus for supernatural forces that continue to manifest to this day. Graves wasn't just another frontier trader looking to make a profit. He had devised an intricate system of debt bondage that essentially enslaved local Apache people, but his crimes went far beyond economic exploitation. The trading post became a house of horrors, where Graves and his wife Antonia subjected their victims to systematic torture. Even more disturbing, they turned their cruelty into a grotesque form of entertainment, charging visitors to witness the suffering of their Apache captives. This commercialization of cruelty would ultimately draw the attention of forces far beyond their comprehension. The Apache people, known throughout history for their resilience and spiritual strength, weren't about to let these atrocities go unchallenged. They turned to one of their most powerful medicine men, a sorcerer known as Patch. What followed was an intense spiritual intervention that would become legendary in Apache oral tradition. For 10 days, Patch fasted in the wilderness, his body weakening while his spiritual power grew stronger. Through day and night, he performed ancient chanting rituals, calling upon a force that had become legendary throughout the Southwest, the spirit of Montezuma. Now, this isn't the Montezuma you might remember from your history books, the Aztec emperor who faced Cortés in the early 16th century. The historical Montezuma, who ruled from 1503 to 1520, was already known for his mystical inclinations. But over centuries, this historical figure had transformed into something far more powerful in the folklore of the American Southwest. Among the Pueblo peoples and beyond, Montezuma had evolved into a figure of immense supernatural power, associated with both healing and retribution. This transformation wasn't without its complications. Catholic missionaries had tried desperately to suppress Montezuma worship, attempting to demonize him and eradicate his influence. But like many attempts at cultural suppression, these efforts backfired spectacularly. The persecution only increased Montezuma's appeal among oppressed peoples, strengthening traditional practices and deepening his integration into the spiritual fabric of the Southwest. Patch's prayers were answered in a way that would become legendary. According to Apache tradition, Montezuma dispatched his sacred servant, a massive rattlesnake known as biberon. This wasn't your ordinary diamondback. Witnesses described it as being 30 feet long, with a body as thick as a man's torso. The snake dealt swift justice to Malcolm and Antonia Graves, but their story didn't end with death. Their spirits were condemned to a kind of limbo, trapped in the netherworld for purification. But some say they never found peace. The trading post ruins became a focal point for supernatural activity. Hunters reported hearing screams in the night. Travelers spoke of ghostly figures that seemed to beckon them toward the crumbling walls. The spirits would periodically escape their limbo, creating a cycle of supernatural encounters that continues to this day. Perhaps the most detailed account comes from a hunter and his wife at the turn of the century. Their experience provides a chilling glimpse into how the trading post's dark energy continued to affect visitors long after the original events. The couple described being stalked by a hulking male figure as they made their way through the mountains. They felt as if they were being deliberately herded toward the old trading post, their every attempt to change direction somehow leading them back toward those haunted ruins. As night fell early, unnaturally early, they would later insist, they found themselves at the decaying structure. There in the doorway they saw a shimmering female figure. The hunter's wife described feeling mesmerized, drawn toward the apparition despite her terror. It was a mesmerization so complete that she felt her will being stripped away, her feet moving of their own accord toward the ghostly woman. But before they could get too close, they were saved by the sudden appearance of a one-eyed Apache medicine man. Behind him, coiled in the shadows, was an enormous rattlesnake, perhaps the same biberon of legend. The medicine man warned them to leave immediately. Advice they were only too happy to follow, though the experience would haunt them for the rest of their lives. But the legend of Montezuma and his sacred serpent extends far beyond this single incident. In 1989, a remarkable encounter in the Superstition Mountains near Phoenix added a new chapter to the ongoing story. A man of mixed Pima Indian and Hispanic heritage, seeking to connect with his ancestral roots, embarked on a traditional vision quest in punishing conditions. The setting itself was challenging, the Superstition Mountains in 115-degree heat, far from any sign of civilization. On his 5th day of fasting and prayer, after hours of singing and deep meditation that continued past sunset, he had an extraordinary encounter that would transform his understanding of the ancient legends. As the last light faded from the sky, he witnessed what he described as an enormous serpent, comparable in size to an anaconda, its scales gleaming with an otherworldly light. Alongside it stood a towering figure he identified as Montezuma himself, 7 feet tall, dressed in magnificent multicolored feathered robes and carrying a scepter. The vision brought a warning against the dangers of materialism, a message that seems particularly relevant to the trading post tragedy. To understand the full significance of these encounters, we need to explore how the historical Montezuma transformed into such a powerful supernatural figure. The New Mexican folk version of his origin, as recorded by historian Mark Simmons, tells of a leader born among the Rio Grande Indians who first ruled at Pecos Pueblo. This Montezuma possessed supernatural powers from an early age, married a Zuni woman, and eventually traveled south on a giant eagle to found Tenochtitlan. Scholars believe this fascinating blend of history and myth was introduced through Spanish conquistadors and spread by Mexican Indian servants before being thoroughly integrated into Pueblo tradition. The story then spread to other tribes, each adding their own cultural elements to the growing legend. The sacred serpent traditions associated with Montezuma have their own rich and sometimes dark history. In some Pueblo villages, particularly around Taos, there are troubling stories of child sacrifices made to appease this powerful entity. Hispanic locals in the area developed their own specific beliefs and practices, including special feast days dedicated to the serpent's appeasement. Historian Cleo Jaramillo documented many of these beliefs in her work Shadows of the Past, focusing particularly on how Hispanic communities interpreted and adapted these ancient traditions. Even the famous frontier chronicler Josiah Gregg, in his work Commerce of the Prairies, recorded physical evidence of the giant snake, describing tracks in the snow as wide as if an ox had been dragged through it. Among the most intriguing elements of the Montezuma legends are the stories of his legacy, both spiritual and material. Before departing for Mexico, he's said to have left behind a sacred fire, promising that those who tended it would gain immortality and unlimited magical powers. This fire became a central element in many ceremonial practices, from healing rituals to hunting blessings and agricultural ceremonies. The material legacy is equally fascinating. Stories of hidden Aztec wealth, protected by supernatural forces, have captivated treasure hunters for generations. In the 1960s, this aspect of the legend gained new credibility when explorers in Utah's White Mountain near Kanab discovered what appeared to be Aztec glyphs and carved steps. Some claim this marked the location of $10 million worth of gold and gems, supposedly shipped northward to keep them from falling into Spanish hands during the conquest. But perhaps the most compelling modern connections to Montezuma's legacy come from contemporary spiritual practitioners. Many medicine men and women today affirm that Montezuma's presence remains active in the land, his power accessible to those who approach with proper respect and preparation. One particularly striking account comes from a Cherokee traditionalist who underwent an intensive spiritual preparation, including a 6-day fast and the creation of a sacred medicine circle. Protected by an amulet provided by his spiritual teacher, he experienced what he believed to be a direct encounter with Montezuma's sacred serpent. The creature he described was massive, over 30 feet long and weighing more than 200 pounds. It appeared to hover before him, defying gravity in a way that immediately marked it as supernatural. The serpent distended its jaw before making gentle contact with its fangs, not to harm, but to transmit what the traditionalists described as an electric sensation of power coursing through his entire body. This encounter transformed him, deepening his commitment to the medicine path and confirming for him the living reality of the ancient traditions. The experience left him with a profound understanding of how the spiritual forces described in age-old legends continue to manifest in the present day. Today, the trading post ruins still stand somewhere in the White Mountains, though their exact location remains a closely guarded secret. Some say this is to protect the site's power. Others suggest it's to protect visitors from forces they might not be prepared to encounter. The screams are still heard on certain nights, they say, and the spirits of Malcolm and Antonia Graves occasionally break free from their supernatural prison, perhaps still seeking redemption or revenge. Whether you view these tales as historical accounts, spiritual truths, or cautionary parables, they speak to something deep in the human experience, the hunger for justice, the power of belief, and the way the past reaches forward to touch the present. The legend of Montezuma's snake reminds us that some forces are beyond our control or understanding, and that the spiritual traditions of the Southwest remain as vital and mysterious as the landscape itself. Check out my large video and playlist catalog of Southwest history, legends, lost gold tales, and adult bedtime stories. Happy trails! Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.